How is everyone doing today? Welcome to the Forever Classic Games podcast, where we like to talk about video games and all things nerdy, geeky, movies, whatever it may be. We like to talk about it, and we like to record ourselves talking about it so you can listen to us talk about it. I am Joe Simpson. I'm one of the hosts here at Forever Classic Games. I'm joined by my fellow hosts, Alex and Zach. Welcome, guys. How are you doing today?
Good, man. How's everything going on your end?
I'm doing pretty good. How's your morning been? What'd you eat for breakfast?
Eggs and fluffy toast.
Nice. I had steak and egg cheese sandwich. It was pretty delicious. Alex, did you eat breakfast? It's the healthiest meal of the day, man.
I am drinking coffee, and that's where I've gotten so far. By the way, I'm like really hard repping the National Video Game Museum today. I've got my coffee mug and I've got my shirt for it. But yeah, I'm Alex.
Sweet.
For anybody who's like stumbled onto our show and this might be the first time listening.
Yeah, so I'm Joe. We got Alex and Zach. So we only have one announcement this week, and it is the announcement of a new segment I like to call Joe comes up with random marketing ideas that are unusable, but are still good ideas. All right. Alex already knows this. And
pitch it to Zach.
Zach, you may have seen the note in the show notes and wondered what it meant, but goat milk? So
I don't know.
So you remember that ad campaign for that big milk propaganda ad campaign for milk in the 90s as kids? Where it was like celebrities with milk mustaches and crazy commercials. I say we need to offer some serious competition in the milk industry because the dairy industry is actually not very eco-friendly. And goat milk is the only real competitor. The only thing that has their foot in the door, because people love goat cheese. And people do...
And goat soap.
Yep, and you can get goat milk. It's just not common. It's not high in demand here, at least in the United States. But other places around the world love goat milk. To get goat milk on the same level, they need to use the same marketing tactics as cow milk did in the 90s. And basically recreate those ads, but with goats instead of people. And it just says, goat milk?
Goat milk.
All right, and that was Joe has a marketing plan that is unusable, but still a pretty good idea.
How was this funnier last night?
We were tired.
Like, we were chuckling.
I'm just saying, goat milk. If you have a goat farm and want to figure out a way to advertise, there's a free idea for you.
I actually know a goat farmer.
All right.
Like, legitimately.
You need to pitch this idea to them and see if they use it. Just like put a sign out like next to like the local gas station or farmer's market that just says goat milk.
People are going to wonder.
They're going to walk over and at least chuckle, I think. Like, and maybe
I think there's
And since they walked all the way over to there, they might as well buy some just to try it.
Just
and maybe
to try
they like it.
Uh-huh.
Maybe the goats got into an onion patch. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, hey, you could even just tag it on to some other things and call it the goat.
I think we just need to bring back goats in general.
They're pretty good.
Why are there not more goats?
We sent them all overseas as charity. You know,
Did we?
like those things.
Who's giving out goats?
The charities where they like provide like a family with a goat. You can like Heifer International, where you can buy like an animal.
Cool.
They're actually, it's really legit charity because it's not just
nice.
They do more than just send animals. Like I think it's like chickens, goats, and cows. But they also send people there and make sure they have the resources to be able to take care of the goat.
Okay.
Or like the chickens or whatever. But they like teach them how to like take care of it and milk it and like, you know, maybe they can get a second goat and then suddenly they can make baby goats and like all this stuff. But like, say a family that's struggling gets a goat, they can milk it, take what they need, but then sell the extra milk. And then suddenly they can buy things like soap and other food. And it's like really like a life-changing like thing to get like just one animal, one leg up in life can like really change a family's life around the world. I don't know if it would change my life if I got a free goat. It would probably stress
for the better.
My life out. I guess I could stop.
We're trying to get goat milk off the ground here. It would be a good thing.
We're trying to get goat milk off the ground, not goats.
Hey, sometimes you gotta go all in.
Hey,
you gotta goat all in.
When goats fly, am I right? But yeah, so that's a new segment that may come back every now and then when I have some stupid idea and want to share it with people who probably just want to hear me talk about video games or not even that?
They are plentiful.
If you're laughing right now and got into a car accident because you're laughing so hard at goat milk, I'm sorry.
We do not have any sort of insurance
We are
policies
not
or anything.
liable.
Nope, not in the slightest.
But we're here to talk about video games. So, what are you playing?
Boy, what are you playing?
I have been playing Hades. I kind of took a little break from it to start and learn how to play Civ 6 properly.
Nice.
It's so good, dude.
I've still been playing Neverwinter with the Friends. They just released their Dragonbone Veil update, and it was a shit show.
That game's still getting updates?
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, they just got bought by Gearbox, too.
Oh.
Cryptic and Perfect World, or whoever. Maybe both, maybe one. I don't know the particular on that end. But yeah, I don't know much else about it. Other than that's their, like, MMO outlet is those guys.
Huh.
Which is cool. Their release was just really bad. Whatever they did, like, wouldn't let people log in for, like, 4 or 5 days.
What's with the companies making, like, terrible account systems? Like, the first boss of Final Fantasy XIV is logging in and making an account. Same with Yu-Gi-Oh!
I was talking to my wife about this recently because I noticed it was like Great Clips was like, you can save time by downloading our app and scheduling your appointment through our app and getting deals and stuff. And I'm like, all right, after a certain point, everybody having an app and me having like 100 accounts for every store I ever go to starts to be more tedious than just going to the store used to be. Like,
this is a similar feeling that I have when it comes to streaming services. I mean, the reason why Netflix became so popular is because it was ridiculously convenient and it had a bunch of like good variety of shows and all these like great niches and stuff. And now we have like 8 or 9 different streaming services. Well, guess what? We're just paying the same that we did for cable.
Yeah,
unless
we only get Netflix.
You share passwords.
But fewer ads still. I would pay the current rates for cable if there weren't advertisements. But every time I watch TV and there's like a 2 to 3 minute like ad break, I shut it. I'm like done already. I'm done with ads. YouTube is the one place I like put up with it now. Because
and
I can
now a
often
word from our
skip it.
sponsors. No, that'll come later.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm just like, what used to be a convenience is now tedium.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to download an app to get a Big Mac. I just want to go get the Big Mac. Like, why is this a complicated process?
Agreed. So a little Civ, a little Neverwinter for you, Zach?
And Hades.
Yeah, just been kind of watching that shit show. Because the last little thing I'll tack onto that is they changed a whole bunch of the like enchantments, how you upgrade your power, like armor stuff. They gave everybody 6-day like timer one of like a much higher class so everybody could get into the new stuff. And that was ticking while everybody was not able to log in.
Oh, see, that's how they get you.
Great.
Yeah,
Free PlayStation, but the power cord's going to cost you $600.
Yeah, well, I mean, they also made that whole system like 3 times more expensive on in-game currency stuff. So everybody's already salty, and now they've only got like 3 days of their 7 that they had to play with it. So
sweet.
They're cranky.
Disappointed face.
Oh, there's lots of it.
So,
what about you, Alex? What you been playing?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have lost a lot of time here recently to a little game called Pokemon Legends Arceus, which is far better and far worse than I originally expected. And the reason that I say that is because the general gameplay mechanics are so engaging and fun, but like the world and the general quality of this game is kind of not great. Like it does weird things. The pop-in is ridiculous as far as like objects appearing in the distance. If you're paying attention, you can really kind of see where this game was stapled together. Hopefully that gets ironed out in some patches. But the other thing, too, is, like, occasionally the game will just, like, flicker. And I don't know if it's because I'm using Joe's dock and I have a launch switch. And I blame a lot of my performance issues on the possibility that it could just be a launch switch issue.
I've had people talking to me about, they'll be standing there and in long cutscenes, you'll just see, like, one foot do the, like, crazy dance foot move, just...
No, I haven't run into that. But generally, the structure of Pokemon Legends is really cool. I kind of recommend just, like, barreling through the story for at least the first couple, because you get these, like, mount Pokemon. You get, like, a deer and a bear, and the bear you can ride around, it'll get treasure. The deer's just a faster way to move. And you also get, like, a big fish Pokemon, and then a different version of Sneasel called a Sneasler. They just literally put an R on this thing, which I think is the worst name for a Pokemon. But the Sneasler is hilarious because you're actually like mounted on these Pokemon, but for Sneasler, because he's more humanoid shape, he's got like a little bag or like a little basket almost, kind of like in Demon Slayer. How the main character carries his sister in that little wooden box. You kind of become the sister. Like you're in this little like basket, and all you see is these little eyeballs peeping out, and it's the funniest thing I've ever seen. So the game's got a lot of charm. The general gameplay is really fun. It's gonna take a long time for me to like even consider playing a traditional Pokemon game again, because catching Pokemon is so fast in Legends. Like, you can literally catch 5 to 6 Pokemon in a row in the span of, like, 5 seconds, as long as you, like, get lucky and you are like, accurate with your throws.
How big is the Pokedex in this one?
380 some?
Okay, so it's somewhat substantial, actually. Like, that's a good chunk.
That is.
Because I think, how many were originally in
242.
Okay, how many were originally in Sword and Shield? I feel like it wasn't a ton. I don't remember.
180 some, right?
I can't remember exactly, but I remember it being like, isn't there close to 1,000 Pokemon? Why do we only have 180? Like, I remember people being like really surprised. I've been really enjoying the like videos of people playing the game where it's like, go Oshawott, and then Snorlax does Hyper Beam on it, and it's just like,
It makes Pokemon threatening, dude. Like, not only
really
for your player character, which I've never been knocked out, because you, like, steadily refill, and I've been playing Monster Hunter most of my life, and so if somebody throws something at me and you give me a roll with iframes, I'm just gonna, like, be fine. Except for an Arcanine boss battle, which was kind of bullshit.
One of my favorite videos I ran across when I was going through some TikTok, there's I guess an alpha Snorlax. This guy's looking at him from up on the hill, and he looks down, and it is mad at him already. Mm-hmm. And it goes to do the body slam move. I don't remember what it's called.
I think it might be body slam.
I don't know, whatever it was. It went to slam at him, and since he was up on a hill, it was just like Snorlax, like, whoa.
No.
And he turned to the side, and Snorlax shot off like a rifle, just boom.
This game's kind of janky.
Yeah, he looks over and he's like, bye, Snorlax. And then, like, you see off in the distance, the Snorlax is just on top of a pine tree, like, at the, like, view render distance. Just, like, up there with his big red eyes, like, oh.
Yeah, so there's a couple different types of Pokemon. Like, the bosses that you fight is a more traditional boss fight. You're, like, throwing what's called balms. They're, like, these little sacks that they created of, like, their favorite food ground up. And so it's, like, a little scent sack. And you're, like, throwing these, like, crazy in these boss fights. And sometimes you'll, like, knock it down, and then you get in a traditional Pokemon fight. And if you hit it again, you get a free opportunity to get more damage on it. And so there's like 4 or 5 of those boss fights, and I've done like 3 or 4, and they're fine. They're not great, but at least it breaks up the monotony. So you have noble Pokemon, which is those guys, and then alpha Pokemon, which are larger and angrier versions of regular Pokemon. And if you catch them, they're actually that big, so you can have like a giant Heracross and like a regular sized Heracross.
Oh, that's kind of fun. That's like when you like small versus large monsters in Monster Hunter. Like,
right, yeah.
So is there breeding in Arceus?
I don't know if there's breeding. There are shinies, and there is trading, but there's not player-to-player combat yet.
That's what I'm most curious about, is when they're going to add in that sort of feature to it.
Yeah. I really want to see if there's breeding at some point in the game, because I want to give people Cyndaquils. Spread the love of Cyndaquils. By the way, easiest choice I've ever made at the beginning of a Pokemon game. Cyndaquil is perfect, and Oshawott is dog shit.
I don't know. I also really like the owl, but I don't like the owl's later evolution, so I would probably still pick Cyndaquil.
Well, so now they're different. And actually, I dislike this Typhlosion a little bit. I think the type that you get is pretty fascinating, but like the general base design is not as good.
So it's like this realm's version of that?
You get Hisui region evolutions, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I guess I'll have to look into that.
Yeah,
because
whenever you're done with
different.
it, toss it at me and I'll probably play it. But I want to get through a couple of games. What else have you been playing, though?
So I just found the time to finally finish the DLC for Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'll stick with some of the bigger titles right now before I touch on some of the indie stuff. But so I beat that story. It has a really cool fan servicey thing that references one of the like offshoot Final Fantasy games, and so that was really exciting for me and my stepbrother Marshall, because we played that a lot. We're like really invested into this universe, and we have been for the past 15-20 years, and so it was a really cool like just kind of shake up just a little bit in the combat mechanics, because Yuffie is very fast and it's all about like rhythm. So if you can get in certain elemental attacks from a distance and then sync up your partner Sonon, who's like this himbo like Wu-Tai fighter with a bow staff. And so he's just kind of there. The game's genuinely funny at random points because Yuffie is just this like off-the-wall character. And it's just more Final Fantasy VII. And I'm, like, super excited to be playing more Final Fantasy in general, because we have so many cool things coming out in that universe here soon. We have, like, Strangers in Paradise. Forsaken is basically a Final Fantasy game. And so I'm here for it. I'm ready for more Final Fantasy content, aside from 14, because it's too much.
Yeah, an MMO is, it's a commitment, right? And then, like, you
Yeah.
got to play consistently in order to, like, because the whole point is to, like, play with other people and, like, build that
Right.
community. So you're, like, dedicated to playing regularly in order to keep up with other people. Otherwise, they'll play without you.
Right.
And then you'll
And
be
we have good
behind.
friends that I could just, like, join in, like Justin, who writes a little bit for the site, recently got a couple new bylines at various publications. Congrats to Justin. Izzy, the podcaster and just good friend of ours, she's been playing Final Fantasy XIV, and it's this, like, huge celebration of a franchise that it's, like, my top franchise ever. I'm looking up, and I have all these Final Fantasy figures and toys and, like, decorations and things. Like, this is my favorite franchise, and I have very little interest in playing 14 just because of that massive commitment, not only but time, but the subscription fee of the 15 a month.
But we're not here to talk about games you're not playing. What games are you playing?
Well, to continue that list, I started Yuppie Psycho, which is a indie horror game from another indie / now Neon Doctrine, who we've had on the show before and who we've covered their games in the past.
And that's
I'm
kind of
kinda
based
stuck.
off of, like, a kind of a wacky, strange anime series, correct?
No. So it is very anime. It is very so the type of horror that it really taps into is like a mix of what if you dropped Silent Hill kind of like monster design and mixed it with like yokai and then put it in an office building. And so the entire game so far takes place in a single office building, so you're connected by an elevator and you go to these various floors and you're like steadily unraveling this puzzle box, which I really like. But there's like this resource management issue where you end up in a lot of these situations where you have very, very little health and no way to get it back. You can't just, like, walk up and get full health again. Like, you gotta go buy a sandwich, and usually you have no money, and so you're, like, really scrounging
that.
around, and it sucks. And that's the one thing holding me back from loving this game, is I
Okay.
just can't get enough health and the stuff.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Aside from that, I'm playing probably one of the most perfect fighting games ever, Soul Calibur 2, which you can play on the Xbox One. Love that. So I work at Black Ice as a esports media and podcast producer and commentator. And one of the things that we've been doing is like these traditional fighter nights where we bring in like Tekken or Street Fighter 5 or Third Strike. But I'm all about that Soul Calibur 2. So I convinced like 8 people in the Soul Calibur 2 community to come in and like do a tournament, including a guy who's legitimately good and like a pro, and he just happens to live in Minneapolis. And so his name's Esam, and he's like this amazing Voldo player, like absolutely incredible. And it was just super cool to like get a higher level of Soul Calibur, and we had a lot of fun. The VOD will be available on the Black Ice Esports YouTube here soon, and so I just had like a really good time, and I've really been enjoying exploring Soul Calibur 2 from like a competitive sense.
Well, just generally, you've been doing a
Awesome.
bunch of fighting games because you
Yes, yeah.
you
mhm.
also this week modded and customized the fight stick that you got.
I did. So Paradise Arcade Shop is a local distributor here in Minneapolis. They're really well known in the fighting game community. And so they ship buttons, and they've got custom projects and various different methods of input. But I got an 8-bit dough arcade stick for Christmas, and so I like have that as a base, and I've replaced the buttons, and I replaced the lever to be like a Sanwa lever, and I also modified it to where you can actually like pick the joystick up and like remove it in one swift motion with the Link EX modification. It's like a custom shaft you stick into the thing, and it's super cool. The only thing that I'm worried about now is how solid the actual 8-bit dough like board is as far as feeding inputs, because I'm running it through an adapter to play on the PS5. So I kind of want to eventually upgrade to like a universal kit that's more reliable. But for now, like just playing around as a hobbyist, it's been a lot of fun like modifying sticks.
Yeah. And then you and I sat down and have played a bunch of Guilty Gear Strive this week. That was fun.
Yeah, Guilty Gear is a work of art. No fooling. It is absolutely brilliant and has incredible music and really good animation. And the general just like gameplay mechanics are really interesting and like a weird hybrid between what you would expect in an anime fighter versus what you would expect in like a Street Fighter. And so that's been a lot of fun to learn. I've been like trying to parse together all these different fighting game mechanics because I have to talk about them.
Right.
And I'm just like covering so many games, but I would say the one I'm putting the most time into is Tekken 7. So I'm playing Noctis, but I play him like a Soul Calibur character because he has big sword.
That's true.
But that's That's been super fun. Fighting games are cool. We've got so many of them coming out here soon. And fighting game tournaments and events are exceptionally cool. Frosty Faustings, I watched recently. Their top 8 Guilty Gear, one of the best top 8s I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think I was playing a game with somebody when you were doing that, so
the whole narrative of that top 8 is just great. So if you want to, like, just a really good way to get a feel for the competitive scene, check that out on YouTube. There's a VOD available through Vampire Arcadia.
Yeah, that was right. The whole tournament, despite being like a fairly big tournament, was spread across random Twitch channels, not like any official channels.
So they went the community route, which I disagree with, because they didn't have like a Frosty Faustings main stage that they can then like go through and host people when there was nothing on. I think that's better overall. But it generally worked. It was hard to find, like, schedules and who's streaming. Once you figured that out, it was fine. But, like, there's a little bit more steps than I would want.
Maybe they don't care if people outside the community are watching or not. Like, if you're in the community, you know where to find it, and that's exactly what they care about. But if they were looking to, like, build on it or, get more funding for future tournaments and improve things down the run, or, help covering their expenses, I don't know. Like, some sort of presentation would be advisable. But, if that's not how they want to do it,
that's
all. I'd argue with them.
Whatever.
Like if they,
and I think a lot of people consider it a major. So, like, you have all these various tournaments that qualify based on the amount of players who are in them and their connection with various circuits and all that type of stuff. But I think Frosty's is considered a major. You can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments or on our YouTube or in our email, theforeverclassicpodcast@gmail.com. Anywho, I hope to be involved with a major, either covering as media for Black Ice or whoever I end up with in the long term, and then just, like, helping organize those sort of things. Like, they're really fascinating to me, and the community that is created through these events is really, really, like, cool and welcoming in a lot of facets. I mean, you have parts of communities that are kind of shitty, like you do anything else, right? But the genuine camaraderie that happens in a fighting game tournament is just fascinating and really addictive in a way.
That's awesome.
As for me, I recently picked up a original Super Nintendo cart of Final Fantasy III, which is technically 6, and I've played the game before, not all the way through, but I have played it before on, like, I've emulated it, and I've played the PlayStation version of it, and I have that, and I have the Super Nintendo Classic Edition, which has it on there. But there's just something about sitting down in front of an old, like, actual CRT on an actual Super Nintendo that really just brings that game to life for me. Mm-hmm. And so I've been really enjoying it. The pixel art, the way that it's presented on a CRT as, like, it was intended. It's like, I don't know, I was just, like, struck by how, like, gorgeous it is in a way that I haven't before on, like, IPS screens or, like, LED. And so that was, like, I was expecting it to be good, but it's better than I was expecting, which is pretty cool.
Have you ever finished 6?
I've played through the first, like, 10 hours a couple of times and then got distracted or whatever. Like, stuff happens or...
The middle of that game, I think, is just, like, generally not super interesting, and so that's why I've fallen off it in the past as well. But this year, I really want to beat it.
I think it's not even, like, necessarily a long game. I think it's only, like, 24 to 30 hours, depending on how, like, much you dig into it. But it's... Yeah, it's just one of those things where I got to a certain point, and then I would start a new game and forget to go back to it. And by the time I got back to it, I had forgotten where I was or how to play, because some characters have unique mechanics that if you forget how they work, you can't use that character very well.
Yeah. How long to beat has it pegged at, like, 35 hours? And then if you do some of the extra stuff, 42, 66 for a completionist run.
Yeah, I would never do that.
Roughly.
But kind of keeping in the same vein, I've been playing and finally digging into Bravely Default 2, which I've been having a lot of fun with. I'm almost to 40 hours into it, and I'm really enjoying it. The combat is engaging to the point that no fight is really boring, but there's also times where I just want to make progress. I tend to be a player who just finishes every fight, and so I will do every fight that I encounter, and there are times where I've had to, like, go back and level up, and I feel...
Is there a way you can turn off encounters in that
There
game?
is a way to do that.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know, it messes with the mechanics somehow, where something with the experience. So then if you do increase the level up later, you aren't where you need to be. But I'm already not where I need to be. I don't know. It gets frustrating that I don't skip any fights, but I have to grind, and I just want to make progress, which I know kind of defeats the purpose of it. Like, a lot of people love the grind, But right now, with the amount of time I have, I just want to like see the story unfold. I want to make progress. I want to get to the next. I want to unlock the next asterisk, or I want to defeat the next boss. I want to see what happens next.
I don't know what it is about the beginning of the year, and this might be because we watched that essay from Hazel about cozy JRPGs, but for some reason, a lot of us are just into JRPGs right now.
Well, around Christmas is when I fired. You were gone for like a couple of weeks, and I fired up Bravely Default 2 and put in like 10-15 hours over a weekend. And so I've just been putting in an hour here, an hour there since then. And so that was before I even watched that. But yeah, that made me nostalgic for JRPGs, which I was already playing them. So I was like, yay, I'm doing the thing I want to do. And then the last game I've been playing is I recently upgraded my PS4 copy of Ghost of Tsushima to the PS5 copy, which includes like a fidelity mode. So like it looks even better than it did before.
The game's really pretty.
I don't really care about frame rate, like typically. Like as long as it's at least like 30 to 45, I'm usually pretty happy. I'm not like a 60 FPS snob unless I'm playing like a really fast-paced game. But for this, 30 to 45 is totally playable, and I want it to look pretty. And that's just my preference. And if you don't like that, well, it doesn't impact you at all. So don't talk. Don't at me.
Frame rate's never bugged me personally. I just like it to be locked. I don't like it to shift around much.
Oh, I barely notice it. It's not something I notice too often. But it also, the PS5 version also like takes advantage of like the like extra sensitive rumble features in the controller and the adaptive triggers. So like your different bows and throws and stuff have different weights to them depending on what you're doing. And yeah, it's just like really, really cool. I've owned the game since near launch. And I'm just now, I put in a bunch of time right when it came out, and I'm just now getting into finishing it. I think I'm about the halfway point.
Samurais and ninjas are cool.
They are cool.
Yep.
And for a long time, I played it in the Kurosawa mode, just because I wanted to be pretentious and play it in black and white, but with the film grain. But I recently switched back over to the color, and I'm finding it to be an easier experience. Because there are times where I'm like suddenly I get hit with an arrow because I didn't notice that there was a guy like somewhere because they like blended into the background in black and white. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up what I've been playing. Other than me and my daughter played some of the Clubhouse 51 games, which is a far better experience than you would expect a game like that, a game named that to be. But it's like an actual like good collection of like different little games. Like we played a game of chess, we played some Yahtzee. You can play like air hockey with like the touchpad, so each person is on either side of the switch in between you, and you're each controlling like a little hockey, like air hockey like paddle. You can play darts where you like have the Joy-Con and you actually do like a flick motion and it translates that into throwing the dart on screen. It's pretty cool. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've been playing.
Neato.
Tales of giant monsters are as old as tales themselves, but what makes those stories fit into the kaiju genre and just how scary can they be? Larry and Justin are pursuing this very knowledge on the Here's Johnny podcast, a horror show that arrives every week, just like your favorite radio drama, but instantly through forbidden sciences known as Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. There are a ton of kaiju out there to learn about. Just listen to your local emergency officials and stay out of their paths. Wait, say that again? Sorry, folks, I'm getting a message from our staff. Folks, we're getting reports that a massive creature has just risen off the coast of this station and is heading this way. Please follow evacuation protocol and...
Listen to the Here's Johnny podcast on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts.
Hello, kaiju lovers! I'm Nathan Marchand, the host and curator of the Monster Island Film Vault, a podcast seeking entertainment and enlightenment through tokusatsu. And that's my intrepid producer, Jimmy from NASA, who miraculously survived the infamous war in space, but he won't tell me how. Anyway, join me and my rotating roster of guest hosts as we critically and academically examine various kaiju and tokusatsu media, and have fun along the way. Assuming the mysterious Monster Island Board of Directors doesn't suddenly cancel us. I did say that out loud, and I don't care. Check out our website, monsterislandfilmvault.com, or find us on your favorite podcatcher. Jimmy, cue credits. Oh yeah, it's a trailer. Oops.
Coming up is, since we only do this about once a month, it kind of piles up on us, but there's some major events that happened this last month since the last time we did this. The first one being Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard, which is like a kind of a crazy move considering the controversy surrounding Activision Blizzard this past year with all the like work environment, hostile like culture, sexual
People
assault,
being
nonsense. And
people
the
being
fact
actively
that
mistreated.
Phil Spencer's the head, right?
The
Okay,
Xbox?
Xbox.
Yeah. He recently, or he had tweeted out about like them basically saying we if this continues, we may need to reconsider our relationship with Activision Blizzard.
Yeah.
I wasn't anticipating that translating into just buying Activision Blizzard, but hopefully that's a sign that its ownership, its leadership cares a lot about those work environments. And we see some changes in the coming years once that is finished. And I don't think the full sale finishes until the end of this year or maybe early next year. But hopefully we see, the gears clicking and the changes happening. Otherwise, it's just going to be more of the same.
It's got to be better than being involved with Activision Blizzard staff, right? Like at the higher level. And it is expected that leader or CEO Bobby Kotick will be stepping down. And if he doesn't, I think it would be a terrible PR move for Xbox in general to keep that gross motherfucker. So I say if you're Xbox, go in, change that work culture immediately by getting rid of the scum and then letting them unionize.
Yeah. Well, didn't one of the sub-studios already unionize?
Raven.
Yeah.
They're trying. They've got the first prerequisite stuff.
Okay, so they started the process. But
there's a bunch of union busting going on right now at Activision Blizzard. It's really gross if you actually look into it.
Anything that makes a major corporation uncomfortable is worth doing.
This is good for me. Go get them.
Sure, it may not be the greatest. If your only goal is to just make money and be a business, sure. I can see why you wouldn't like it.
Right.
But there are more important things than rich people getting richer, and that's like people being solid in their jobs and being able to negotiate better wages. Because they try these tactics where it's like, we want to interact with our employees directly, one-on-one, where you can fight for yourself. If you let a union...
why don't you talk to HR?
If you let a union negotiate for you, you might not get as good of a deal. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm guaranteed a deal if I go through the union. Like, I would rather go through the sure thing rather than, and you can't take advantage of me as easily. And if you're against it, I'm for it, Mr. Rich Person.
This is all being shared extremely well through a better ABK and a better Ubisoft, both organizations who are trying their damnedest to get unions going. They're even collecting money to be able to support people if they're on strike. And so that's been extremely valuable to the industry in general. But I think if you're I just worry about the state of games and the IPs and the things that I care about that are made and owned by Activision Blizzard. I think you're probably in a good place right now because at the end of the day, what did Activision Blizzard do to Warcraft 3? They ruined a community. What did they do to Overwatch? They ruined an esports league that was actually having some cool aspects to it. Everything Activision has touched in the last 5 years has went down the shitter. So at this point, if you're Xbox, you have a big opportunity to bring these franchises back in a way that's genuine.
Yeah. We might even see some sort of cool revival of the plastic instrument interface games.
Oh, Guitar Hero and such. I mean, maybe, yeah.
And so, as much as those got driven into the ground, every now and then I'm nostalgic for playing some Bark at the Moon on a Guitar Hero. Like that stuff was fun. I liked those games.
I used to be real good on Rock Band. I used to be able to play every single instrument on
it'll
Expert.
be interesting to see what this buyout does.
So let me propose this question real quick then. If there's one franchise that you wish was handled better that's currently owned by Activision Blizzard, what would it be? I'm
not familiar enough with what they have. I mean, generally speaking, it'd be nice if they came out with a Call of Duty that actually interests me.
Zach, what do you got?
I mean, yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat, because I really enjoyed Call of Duty.
Sure.
But it's basically copy paste for
Yeah,
the past couple of years with a
it's
different theme.
the same route as sports games at this point.
Not only that, but their
riddled.
esports league is bullshit right now. Like, people are actively switching to Halo.
Yeah, and all of their stuff is completely riddled with hackers.
Yeah.
So they don't have any kind of, like, I mean, I understand that there's, like, so much you can do with your security, but, like, still, it's like they don't care.
Yeah, I think Call of Duty will be a big one that Xbox really like takes ownership of and pushes through. But the franchise that I'm sure really could use like good support moving into the fourth entry is Diablo.
Yeah.
You could make an excellent multi-platform Diablo, because I think Xbox is kind of leaning towards that right now. How do we get our games in more places?
I think that, like, honestly, as much as people didn't like it, and I understand that, like, the backlash in finding out that it was just a reskin of, like, a Chinese mobile game, but I liked the idea of Diablo Immortal, or the mobile Diablo. What is Diablo? It's an action RPG where you just click on things. Well, what is the gameplay mechanic on a phone? You scrub your finger around and you click on things. It's the same gameplay mechanic, and I would be interested in a really solid, like, you pay it and you own it and you can play with people. Like, if they take the free-to-play model where it's riddled with, like, microtransactions, I probably won't play it for very long. But if it's, like, straight up a game release on mobile devices, I would be into a mobile device Diablo.
I would be too.
The Kingdom Hearts game on mobile played very similar to Diablo, and it worked. It was really fun. It's the only mobile game I've ever played to any extent of time.
Yeah.
And part
Granted,
of it
that also has the free-to-play model, but there's a lot of shit you can ignore.
Right. But it wasn't... this could have changed, but at the time, I wasn't interrupted by ads on the Kingdom Hearts game. Mm-hmm. There were options to buy things, but I never bought them. I just played the game, and I really, really enjoyed it.
Heaven forbid you play a game in 2022. This is why I support indies so fervently.
In the past month, I have downloaded like 3 or 4 games to my phone just for something casual to play and have.
Yeah.
And I've uninstalled it within 30 minutes because of the ads. It's outrageous. I like I stated earlier in this episode, I just don't have time for that anymore. Don't interrupt my gameplay. I'm having a good time with your game. You got a good game. I want to stick around and play it. But when you make me sit and stop playing for 30 to 45 seconds every 5 to 10 minutes, I am no longer having fun.
Out. So I think that Xbox has a really big opportunity because the value of those intellectual properties, I think, are tremendous.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of really excellent, talented, hardworking, good people in this company. You just got to save them. Save it on Xbox. Like that's what I hope for.
Invest in your people. They're going to be the things that go well.
Now,
agreed.
There's enough going on right now that it wouldn't be difficult for good designers and developers to jump ship somewhere else that they would want to go. Especially ones with a name. They could just be like, nah, these people have the same deal or better for me. I'm leaving to go there.
You don't think that the current director of a Diablo game couldn't just jump ship and find an excellent job somewhere else?
I think that might have happened, and I think it might have been for reasons that are not good.
Right.
if I remember that story
right. If they want to prevent that from happening, they need to change some things.
Right, because at the end of the day, you can work remote. Most companies are open to it, and you can work literally anywhere on the planet.
Yeah, provided your internet is reliable.
Sure.
Before we move on to the next one, while we're on the topic of Xbox, in January, the Xbox creator compared gaming to masturbating and nearly got fired for it. But the comparison is actually somewhat apt because he talks about people just like jumping on and enjoying themselves as a stress release. Like, he wasn't trying to necessarily be crude. He was trying to, like, I think maybe find, like, you know, be lighthearted about it. But people didn't take the comparison, like, people who take themselves way too seriously didn't appreciate the comparison, and he nearly got fired over it. But I just think it's funny that he was just like, you know, people like escape reality. They relieve their stress. It's like gaming is like masturbating. And then they were like, whoa, you can't talk about masturbating. This is not professional. And he's just like, I
think you should.
He's like, I invented the Xbox. Do you know who I am?
I don't think we should be shaming a regular thing that the human race and other primates do frequently.
But to actually move on to the next subject, in a surprise move that also, like, January was the month of buyouts because Sony bought Bungie.
Zach, you're the Destiny guy, man. Like, what do you think about this?
I was extremely worried at first because Sony's been, anti-crossplay, like very fervent against it for a long time.
That's a good point.
And Bungie just finally got crossplay on everything just recently. They've released articles recently that have explained, like, no, we're retaining complete creative control. We're not going to change anything we're doing. It's not going to change anything in the immediate future. We're not doing the console-specific exclusives like they had at the beginning of Destiny and Destiny 2, where each console had a specific strike or exotic, and then a year later everybody got those things, because that was really stupid. They said they're not doing any of that stuff. They want everybody to have the same experience everywhere, because it was a couple $1 billion buy.
Yeah.
From what I understand, Sony will be pretty hands-off, but they'll be there as a big backer and, overlord, because that's what they do.
It's interesting because Bungie was the developer of Halo, which was Microsoft's big exclusive back in the day. And then they went independent and developed Destiny. And then I think
got bought by Activision Blizzard.
Then got free of them and are now under Sony. So it'll be interesting to see hopefully they retain the autonomy that they fought so hard for so many years. And I understand that a lot of the big developers and people who worked on Halo are no longer there. They're under a lot of new leadership. But
some of them worked on Disintegration, which we covered.
It's a fairly popular franchise, Destiny. It's interesting to see how they utilize the studio and if they can make that buy, because that's a lot of money worth it. And a lot of people are saying that Destiny was not worth that much money.
The other thing is, because it was a couple $1 billion buy, from what I understand, it's like $1.2 billion-ish of it was spent solely on retaining staff.
Nice.
Which was met with mixed feelings, though, because people were like, that's cool, that's great. A lot of people loved it. Like, yeah, I'm glad that you're paying to help me stay here. And then other people on the far end of it being bad were like, it just looks like golden handcuffs. I'm going to get this money, but how long do I have to be locked here for it? Or
Good point.
will I have to pay it back if I try to leave in a certain amount of time? Or if I change jobs? Like, they're like, they don't understand it real well. I mean, we don't either, because it's particulars and deals at that point at an individual level, but still, there's good and bad that can be from it, and we just don't know yet.
I think the thing that I've kind of gathered by listening to other people in the industry talk about this and listening to one of the Insomniac guys who has a podcast, I forget his name, Price or something, but the way they talk is that Sony, especially at the AAA level, is very collaborative. I mean, we see the Horizon Zero Dawn devs helping out with Death Stranding, vice versa. So there's a lot of cross-lateral advantages to being owned by Sony, and hopefully that comes into play. But the other thing, too, is apparently Sony are really interested in creating more live service games, for better or worse, maybe in a smaller scale than what we consider a live service game. And if that happens, they want to have the expertise of these Destiny devs who have created one basically out of nothing, and just really good expertise in the industry. And creating a brand new IP is not easy, and we're 8 years into their 10-year original pitch for this.
Well, they also broke into a space, they tapped into that desire of an MMO community. But
looty shooty,
but it's a skill-based environment rather than an RPG-based environment, and I think that's really
in places.
Cool. Fair enough.
So one of the things that was always talked about in the early days of Destiny was the fact that you could go out, explore the world, run into another player out in the open, similar to what you would in World of Warcraft or something like that, or RuneScape, but then be able to create a fire team with them out in the world and then just go do stuff.
Right.
Rather than having to party up with a person and then go into things together. But the idea of being able to be more flexible with it. And one of my hopes is that they could go and pull that idea back from the brink. Because it's pretty far out there at this point. It's years and years back. But to be able to pull that out maybe with this extra help and extra development team and be like, this is what we want to do. So now you can just go out and explore, team up with people in the field, tackle big stuff. And then just separate if you want, or just continue on.
I would love to see Destiny end up in a more traditional MMO design space, because it's very instance-based right now. So you load into a section. The real estate of that map is usually not very big by MMO comparisons, and so I would love to see the worlds expand, have more detail in them, and then be able to load in, like you're saying, and have these really organic interactions with other players. Let's hope, man. Yeah. At the end of the day, we'll probably see a new IP from Bungie. We'll probably see them collaborate on various projects, And so
Also,
hopefully
yes.
this is just better for everybody.
So,
These are things that they've also announced is that they plan to pull out a new one in the next 5 years or so.
Like
And
a
will be
Destiny 3?
No, like a whole new thing.
IP
Okay.
with Sony. That was part of the plan, and I guess they'll kind of be spearheading that live service MMO space with Sony.
So as the resident Destiny fan, what would you like to see out of like a new IP from them? Would you like to see like another MMO type experience or like a solo experience within the Destiny universe or something completely different altogether?
You know what? Because Bungie's known for their shooting action from Halo and Destiny. They do it very well. They do it better than almost everybody, I could say. I would love to see something that didn't compete against itself, like so that they don't have games in their own genre competing. Because, I mean, Halo is its own thing right now, has a single story campaign. It's based on multiplayer. Destiny has its overarching PvE with PvP ingrained with it so that it's not overly like competitive in the same like field. It's got its own different niche. I want to see again something that's different but could like make 3 big points that that Bungie could just be like, we are the pioneers of this. Like, we've got it covered. Take points from us. But
I
also,
want to see first person Bloodborne.
That'd be great. I do want to see more because I think that they've been talking about doing like anime or some sort of cartoonish something, like expanding like the Destiny universe.
Lord knows it needs it in places other than text files.
yeah, and I think that that's actually something that's coming out.
Cool.
I think they've been working on at least one project.
Buy this comic book; it'll explain everything.
No, I think it's actually going to be something like Netflix.
Like a Netflix, like an Arcane kind of.
Yeah, but it'll start expanding on other like characters that aren't mainly featured constantly.
Cool.
Which would be awesome because you all don't understand it, but there's like a really great evil character that you don't ever see anything of. His name's Dredgen Yor, and he's like one of the big fearsome bad things that you run across in the universe. Like, you hear whispers of it, you never actually interact with him. Like, everybody's like, that guy. Shit. That's the reactions to Dredgen Yor is like the reactions to people realizing Cad Bane's coming.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That's the gravity of like, it's like Dredgen Yor.
Or like Darth Maul coming back or whatever.
Yeah, like get the fuck out. So I would love to see something like on that, like going
Cool.
like exploring more of like the evils of like Destiny universe or like the actual like final deaths, because they talk about them but they don't really explain them well. Like, the only one that's explained super in detail is like the Speaker, who wasn't a Guardian, and Cade 6, who was the whole reason for the Forsaken campaign, like
Right, yeah.
like stuff. And that's, but they leave so much great room for like exposition and like whole shows about fleshing out these stories and characters, and it would be amazing. They could just create a whole series of all sorts of stuff all on their own.
That'd be super dope. Would
And
love
it would
to see
just
something.
and all of that could just be history or just supplementary to what's going on
Sure,
in the
yeah.
Destiny universe. Because right now, like, they don't have to keep it current. They just have such a deep well of lore extending from the original Destiny that they could just start tapping into to catch people up story-wise with like odd branches of stuff, or fleshing out lore books that are just walls of text.
Sick. That
That's
would be
pretty
super
cool.
cool. We see a lot of various projects expanding through stream, like high quality stream television. We have Arcane, we have Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian, we have even the Castlevania anime or the Vox Machina series, which we started recently. Very fun, very funny, from Critical Role. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity, I think, to like flesh out these franchises in a way that's like ideal and genuine to those franchises. Like, I have no fucking interest in League of Legends at all. I now have some interest in the characters because of Arcane.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat. Like, I liked League for a while because I like MOBAs a lot. My preference is still always going to be Smite, but I don't have that many friends to play Smite with.
We should jump back into it. There's a bunch of new characters I want to try out.
I know it's been a minute. Lauren's been talking about it too. But
Do I have that installed?
but yeah, like League, like the characters have always fascinated me because they have all this weird backstory that I don't have any information on. There's no good way to get it.
Arcane's
So-
real good. It's very well presented. Let's jump into. Do you want to touch on this Yakuza news?
Yeah, I was gonna blast through a couple of just small things real quick.
Because if you do the Yakuza thing, I'll do the like retro rundown real quick.
All right. Well, I was just gonna do a couple of small things. A recent update on the Switch improved the Nintendo 64 emulation on the NSO expansion service, which people were pretty excited about because upon release, people would like play Ocarina of Time, and then like the lake wouldn't have water.
Yeah,
and
it's
like
bad.
it was like really bad. But an update to the Surface recently made that better, so people were happy, particularly with the release of Banjo-Kazooie on the Surface. So people were excited about that. Recently, a single hacker took down all of North Korea's internet. All of it.
Rude.
The entire country lost internet because of one hacker, which is just baffling, because I think they banned him from something, or they insulted him or whatever. Anyway, he got pissed off and took down the internet.
Korea's got a really like big online culture too, so that's super unfortunate.
This is North Korea. I don't know how.
Okay.
I don't know how in depth their internet usage is.
I'm not very good at recognizing the differences.
South Korea
the two.
is the one like that's really well known for like their online presence and digital age stuff. North Korea is the one where like we're being convinced that they don't have groceries. I don't know who to believe anymore on anything, but yeah, that's the one that everyone makes fun of because they like fired a rocket and it failed, and it's their nuclear program.
Unfortunate regardless.
The last piece, a bit of a smaller story, but one that I'm particularly excited about. The creator of Yakuza has set up his own development studio. I'm a big fan of Yakuza, and I think I'm excited in this in the same way that people who were excited that Kojima got away from Konami.
Yeah, so that's Toshiro Nagashi.
Yeah, so he started his own studio.
Toshihiro, mispronunciation.
Yeah, let's see.
Toshihiro Nagashi. To create Nagashi Studio.
So Nagashi Studio is the name of it. Work is already underway of their first game. So I'm really excited to see what this creator does outside of the Yakuza series. If he's going to kind of keep that same like style of game, but explore more new themes, or if he's going to do something wildly different. But I don't know if they're going to be heavily associated with Sega still or not. But I'll be also interested to see how Sega fills in that gap, if they will continue to develop Yakuza games without him, because I don't know if he gets to retain that IP name.
Sure, right.
But same how people were excited that Kojima broke away and got to start making his own. He gets to make whatever he wants now. A proven game developer veteran is now getting...
With a really passionate group. Like, that studio's incredible.
Right. And I think this is going to be pretty similar. Really solid games that's got a strong following because of this particular developer, this particular creative design and direction, and now they kind of get to do whatever they want with it for possibly the first time in their career. I don't think Sega has had their fingers too much up in Yakuza's biz because they're realizing that it's something that works, whereas Konami was like trying to always stifle Kojima's ideas.
Actively.
And they would take his franchise and then make like a gashapon machine out of it or whatever. And it's just like, what are you doing?
It's also, so I also want to point out that this is coming from NME.com from Jen Allen is where we're getting this particular story from. A lot of the previous articles that were referenced are available in the show notes. But it's also important to recognize that whenever we get excited about these auteur developers, there are plenty of women and people who are not male in this role. And so if you have particular developers that you're excited about, please let us know. Because the big ones like this have a tendency to be male-dominated, and that's kind of unfortunate.
Yeah.
And this particular developer has actually been criticized for the way that he, his gender roles in the Yakuza games are definitely not great in places. And so it's fair to be critical of that. Yeah. And I've seen that angle before, and it's really fascinating.
It's interesting because I often find those complaints strictly from Western audience. So it's
oh yeah, there's a cultural difference too. I'm sure.
It's interesting because a lot of the same complaints sit on Kojima's stuff too, where the portrayal of women is like, that guy is horny. Like, it's just wild.
So what's that one, Hidedeki Kamiya or whatever?
I don't know.
That one Japanese developer that's always just like tweeting out like, I'm horny.
Great.
And it gets like 40,000 likes, and we're like, what the hell, dude? Can't be horny on me. And he's like, I do what I want.
And then just a quick look at the North Korea internet. Attack against North Korean servers took the entire country off the internet. Coincided with the latest bunch of missile tests. The internet blackout just mentioned coming the day after the 5th such test took place.
Weird. I don't know, man. That's international relations is outside of my expertise. I'll tell you that right now. Thank God we cover a lot of different cultural and international based developed projects. I think that's probably one of our strongest areas. I still want a map that's like all the different people we've talked to throughout the world, because it's fairly far reaching.
Oh my gosh, I'm not here to advertise for your advertisers, Forbes.
Yeah, thank you. Moving on from that, let's talk about some kind of retro-themed things. We'll start first in the indie space, because this was kind of a big deal. Over on G4 TV, which is back, kind of, and like it's like a different way, but there's a lot of really excellent talent in G4. I just haven't been watching it. But Yacht Club had a presentation with G4, and it covered updates to their games and just like general news. So Shovel Knight Dig, a project that we've been kind of looking forward to. It's got like a roguelite angle to it. It's kind of like a platformer mixed with like the digging mechanics you would find in Super Mario Bros. 2. That is nearing completion, so we should hear a release date very soon about Shovel Knight Dig, presumably before the end of the year. They also announced that Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon, which came out in December, is getting a few free updates and various characters. So if you're into that, that'll be really cool. They're adding a versus mode, and I think they're going to try to get like either rollback netcode or something very close to that, so that people can actually like compete in Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon. And I think that could be really cool, because there's definitely like there's an audience for people doing puzzle games really well. The Tetris tournaments get all sorts of hits. People still play the various puzzle fighters that Capcom have made, so I think that would be super cool. And then lastly, they announced Mina the Hollower, which is a Legend of Zelda Game Boy Color era sort of game. And it's like that sort of top-down adventure. You play as like a mouse/rodent character who like burrows underneath things. It's got like a Halloween sort of theme to it, and they put it on Kickstarter for anybody that wants to support, to just let them make the game that much better. Yacht Club already has a stake in it, but they want to just like put more community support behind it like they did with Shovel Knight. And so it's kind of cool that like Yacht Club returns to Kickstarter, even though I don't think it's necessary. They have so much prestige.
Yeah, at this point, there are 2 games I've ever played that I would give a perfect 10 out of 10, and that's Shovel Knight and Hades. And so, like, I'm super excited about them branching into a new IP. I think it was probably wise to move from Shovel Knight and come up with something new so that they don't burn out that franchise. Maybe
or pigeonhole themselves.
Right. And I think, like, you know, talk to people about some of the, like, what's the best Legend of Zelda game? And some people will say Link's Awakening on the Game Boy, particularly the Game Boy Color one. And this takes a ton of inspiration that, and then combines it with some Castlevania elements. I'm very excited about it. I'm tempted to drop down the $100 to get the physical version upon release, but it is like a 2023 release. Yeah. So it's a bit of a wait, but it looks so good. Those of you watching, I've got like a video of the gameplay up, and it's straight out of the Game Boy Color, but with like a wider format.
And with like 60 frames per second. So it's like it retains the art style that the Game Boy Color popularized and is very timeless, but still manages to have its own unique identity.
But someone's going to try and figure out how to get this playing on a Game Boy Color.
And they talked about that when they were interviewing the developers, because the completionist, Gerard, was doing a live play on the show, and they were talking about the various things. And I think it was even Alec Faulkner who was talking about this, but they would love to see somebody modify their game and stick it on a Game Boy Color. Like, that would be sick to them.
I would do that. I've got my little modded Game Boy Advance right here.
I've got a flash cart, so yeah.
Yep. Sweet.
So it's Yacht Club doing more cool Yacht Club things, which I wholeheartedly appreciate and support.
It's weird because I'm nostalgic for a game that's not even out. Like, I see this and I'm like,
isn't that wild?
I feel nostalgia. And it's a new game. I've never played it. But I've spent a lot of time with like Link's Awakening and the Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages Legend of Zelda games on Game Boy Color, and they were incredible.
I love those games. I'm the person who would say Link's Awakening is one of the best Zelda games ever made.
I would agree,
really appreciate
but I wouldn't say it's my personal favorite, but it's very, very, very good.
That's probably my favorite. Also in the indie retro-inspired space, Infernax, which is a game that I have an interview for with one of the community guys about. Hopefully we'll actually get that before the game drops, because it drops on Valentine's Day. Infernax is coming. It's like a Castlevania kind of Zelda 2 sort of hybrid that's really violent and like got a bunch of cool fantasy creatures and like cheat codes that turn you into an Excite Bike. Like it's a wild project. It's been in development for a long time, even before that studio's Just Shapes and Beats. Like, it's been in development for a while, and so I'm extremely excited about Infernax. I love chatting with these developers. When I had the opportunity at PAX West, I think was the last time I saw them. But this game is like been on my radar for a long time. I have a t-shirt that they gave me that is like this cool black metal design. And I every time I see that shirt, I'm like, I hope that's coming out soon. And now it's coming out really soon, and I really want it.
Yeah, it looks really cool.
It's got a lot of just like hardcore violence, and I'm stoked for that style of like presentation. And speaking of things that are violent and gory and also retro, a fan created a PlayStation 1 style Bloodborne game and just called it Bloodborne PSX, and apparently it's great. I haven't had the opportunity to play it, but it's a thing you can just go download, and it's like PSX style rendering. There's lots of different rendering options. You can change the text where, like, normally it would say you've died or whatever. You can change that text in the game files. So you can put things like get wrecked or you're fucking dead, mate. Like all these other things.
DED dead.
Yeah.
Sounds very cool.
I know it's been like a week now. Has someone gotten it running on PlayStation hardware yet? Or is that even possible? Do you know?
I'm not sure, but probably.
Okay. Like, what is
because
the
I think a lot of it
intention
was designed.
Was the intention to make it actual hardware compatible, or just
I think the
aesthetic?
intention was for it to be feasible with maybe a couple slight modifications, but at the end of the day, it was mostly like capturing an art style and capturing the feel of Bloodborne. Apparently, this game translates over Bloodborne mechanics extremely well. Like, it feels like you're playing Bloodborne on the original PlayStation. I haven't played it yet. I hope to stream it here on the channel sometime soon. If that's something that people want to see and want us to cover, like, let me know. I'm just waiting for the right opportunity. It's been in my files. I'm ready to sit down and play it. Like, I really want to dive into this thing.
Those of you that are with us live, I've got the trailer playing on screen, and right now, because of our CRT fake webcam like frames, there's a lot of fake CRT on the screen right now. Even down to the little
Zach,
like
would you play
highlight.
This? We should like would you? We should do a thing about this.
You guys should speedrun it.
I'd be willing to try it for sure.
Race.
All right.
Race.
Grab that link and download it and let me know.
Yeah, we need to do some more races.
Those like blind speedrun races are a lot of fun. But yeah, that kind of concludes the retro side of things. I'm sure there's some great stories out there that either I just didn't put on the priority list or whatever. So if you have retro game or retro inspired or indie stories, let us know. We're actively looking for cool things, and we're doing our best to try to cover things in timely fashions and get that content available on the website somewhere. So let us know if you've got an indie project or something you want us to check out. We'll at least give it a good old college try.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up everything we've got for today. So thank you, Alex. Thank you, Zach, for doing this with me today. It's always a pleasure. And it is February 6th. So if you're wondering, by the time this comes out, what
it falls,
what the space was like when we recorded this, or why we may have missed something because the news hadn't come out yet. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe Nintendo buys, Disney tomorrow. Who knows what's going to happen anymore?
Hopefully on the next episode, I'll have an update about how good Infernax is.
Yeah.
It's coming out next Monday.
But thank you for listening. Thank you for those of you who joined us live, watching us, talk this out unedited. But everyone, stay cool, play some games.